Welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder. As a health, wellness, and sports performance coach, my goal each week is to bring you experts to help you take control of your health and build your self-confidence. Thanks for including me today on your journey to better health. As an elite level runner and coach, I'm excited to introduce you to the All In Running Club. The All In Running Club exists to help you become a better runner. Whether you're a beginner, an elite runner, or anywhere in between, the mission of the All In Running Club is to give you the tools you need to find your success in running. Join today to take advantage of the 75% off yearly membership rate offer. Click the link below in the show notes to learn more. Well, thank you, Angela, for being a guest on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Well, thank you. Really, it's an honor to be your guest. I always like to connect with another, I would say, spirit, share similar frequency.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's something that, like, I think a lot of people don't understand how that works, because in my opinion, the food industry in connection with the pharmaceutical industry has made our brains and our ability to feel that frequency and that connection, it's distorted it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a joke. I mean, not joke. The reality is when we start to modernize food production, that's right. I would say about the same time when we start to use compounds to treat disease, highly concentrated compounds to treat disease. It's almost we create this twin industry, right? I mean, on one hand, the industry mass-produced, highly processed food cause so many health issues.
Right.
On the other hand, I mean, I also worked in pharmaceutical industry myself, so I know it's almost like a feeding process with each other. You can see, the more processed food people eat, the more pharmaceutical products they need, they relied on. On the other side, the more pills you take, the more side effect you're dealing with.
Right.
And then when your body is not feeling well, many times we have those cravings.
Right.
Sometimes the craving can be a sign of certain kind of nutrient deficiency that our body try to send a signal to have us to pay attention. But sometimes it is actually very counterintuitive. It's like the harmful things we're craving more for. It's like purified sugar, of course, many highly addictive drugs, all those things. Yes.
Yeah. Because we're looking for that dopamine hit that's going to, mask all the problems that we have, the side effects of everything. And so we're like, what can we get that we know? And once you have, processed sugar, and, especially at a high enough dosage or quantity of, if you eat a bag of Skittles in 5 minutes, I mean, you're getting so much sugar hit that you're for an immediate time period, you're going to feel just euphoric, and then it's going to crash, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much like highly concentrated drug compounds in certain way when we process sugar and salt and many other food additives to that kind of extent. It becomes almost like a drug, even though they don't need clinical study. However, the long-term impact can be extremely harmful. The problem is, at least with pills, there's dosage. You're not going to take the whole bottle of pills all at once, you're going to get killed. However, sugar is really in the hands of consumers. Like little kids, they can just keep indulging themselves, and many adults, including, sometimes when I first come to this country, that was 30 years ago, I was a PhD student in pathology. So many times the medical school would have those seminars kind of, right after the lunch hours or late in the afternoon. When you're in that kind of room, you start feel like, I'm just going to fall into sleep, take a nap. And then they actually give you incentive to attend those seminars. Some of them are super boring. It's like, just hearing those kind of monotone voice. Anyway, so they give us incentive, graduate school students, medical school students, like, well, we'll provide you free pizza or donuts or all those, soda or coffee to kind of stimulate you. But it's, it's amazing. The first time when I had a donut, when I moved to this country, it made me almost choked me.
Oh,
the
wow.
intense of that sweetness.
Hmm.
Guess what? After a few more times, I was like, oh, I love donuts so much.
Yeah.
I would go to that seminar just because that stupid one free donut, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost like that's the hook.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, but I just chose. Another thing is, if it is, I know you're vegan.
Mhm.
Uh, Interestingly enough, if you look at the history, how human beings develop sugar, it was started, for example, in certain parts of India. I don't know whether they still do it in Mexico though.
Mhm.
How we purify cane sugar is a very natural process. We would dig a hole in on the ground.
Mhm.
And of course, that ground in the old days wasn't polluted with
Right.
pesticides or fertilizer or all the chemicals we don't know.
Yeah.
But you would then put lay a layer of cotton cloth,
Mhm.
kind of like the Muslim clothes, and
Right.
then you would get the cane juice, the sugar cane juice, you would pour it in that hole and just let it evaporate naturally under the
Oh,
sun.
okay.
So what happened is during this process, and that's almost like an aging process,
Right.
during that whole process, not only you get this condensed sugar from this natural sugar cane juice, but also because of it is directly in touch with Mother Nature, the soil, what happens, it would absorb that condensed process. It's almost like a natural um, physics process.
Right.
It kind of draw the mineral from the
Yeah.
soil into that cane juice. So
Right.
that cane sugar is actually very rich. It's
Yeah.
not the pure white color we're accustomed to now these
Yeah.
days. And that's actually a very, very special treat. That's not just good for your energy, is good, it's like nutrient dense to say.
Yeah.
Because sugar, we use it as energy.
Sure.
It's like a pure fuel for our, heart cells,
Hmm.
brain cells. Our brain only constant, I think, about 15% of our body weight, but use more than almost 30% of the energy.
Yeah.
So that's why we're craving for that kind of quick energy source.
Right.
It's a basic survival instinct we developed for millions of years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things, and it's interesting that you point that out about the mineral content that also gets in there when they do it that way. Because one of the things that whenever somebody tells me, or like, whether they're my client or just a friend or somebody that's like, hey, I've got this little, stomach issue going on, or I've got something, and it's like, what do you recommend? Right. And I always tell them, like, get something that's been grown in the earth.
Yeah.
Right. Because like a carrot versus something that's like, I mean, apples are great, right? They're great. There's no problem with that. But like the mineral content that you get from like a carrot because it's in the earth, or an onion or something that's like that mineral content soothes your stomach and your digestive system in a different way. And then you can go back to the fruit that's higher in glucose and higher in natural, those sweeteners and energy pieces to like boost your body back up.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It is insane. Now these days, I mean, in this country, we're not never short of food resource.
Right.
However, we're very short of nutrients.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned about apple. I'm glad you mentioned about it because think about most of the apples we purchase from store, even many of, I would say, organic grown, they're very different than the wild apples, right?
Yes.
The wild apples, like we have a apple tree in our yard, they grow this tiny little
Hmm.
apples.
Right.
Never like they would never grow this big.
Yeah.
I'm just like I can never make them that beautiful looking. I just can't.
Yeah.
And then when they're this big, guess what? The birds and squirrel took them right away.
Right. Yep.
I mean, here's the thing. Doing this slow process, it actually condenses all the minerals coming from the roots, feeding to the branch, feeding to these fruits.
Hmm.
Because fruits supposed to be another new life. So
Right.
the meat of the fruits contains all the nutrients to support the seeds when it
Right.
germinate, right?
Right.
You don't
Yep.
have to have the roots grown yet. It will start to support the seeds to grow few piece of leaves and the roots, so it can start to feed itself. It's almost
Right.
like how babies or birds. I was watching mama bird feeding the baby birds, right? I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
but now these days, because we use so many man-made methods to stimulate the growth. So coming from, because I have deep family heritage roots in traditional Chinese medicine. So interesting enough, if you really, I mean, in the old days, we didn't have fertilizer. However, if you use this yin and yang, kind of from this principle, what it happens is we made this supposed to be naturally young process into very yin process. So what happened is it becomes very expensive. It's almost like you see the green vegetables grow so big, so quickly. Apple, same thing. We force this speeded growth process that the natural nutrients don't have that required time to condense to form the nutrient dense fruits or veggies we would enjoy now these days. So even though, you know, we all follow the nutritional table, right? I mean, coming from the old days. However, I would say it depends on where you collect, where you harvest that piece of apple or kale, the nutrient can be totally different. I mean, they are still the same plant species. However, many of the micronutrients are very different. So one thing about Chinese traditional herbs is about a big part is when do you harvest that? Where do you harvest that? How you harvest that? And after harvesting, what do you do to processing that? Like certain kind of the natural remedies, we use lots of roots, tree barks, branches, leaves, flowers, seeds, fruits, all kinds of things. So for example, I can tell you there it's a very commonly used process. People will say, this is insane, it's crazy. We call it a 9-steam, whatever process. There are certain kind of roots, even including certain type of ginseng. We call it a processed ginseng, but it's not in the factory processed ginseng. We would collect the ginseng root, we would steam it, and certain process is still in Korea that they would steam it with the natural brown sugar. And then you would sun dry that, steam that again. We actually have a particular remedy. This particular roots, we would repeat this process 9 times. Don't ask me why 9 times, because in the old days, we didn't have those chemicals and those machines to break down this. The plant cells are heavily protected by this, the cellular, the wall that's very, very strong. So we would use this natural process, and doing that process also it causes natural fermentation. So all the compounds inside becomes bioactive. Then we would use that to make a remedy. Which is very different than the current process of making pharmaceutical compounds nowadays days. Most of them we can synthesize them in the laboratory setting because we're so good with, and we're still learning, chemistry. That's all about, big part of organic chemistry is learn how to make new compounds. And then we kind of don't rely on those old processes because it's very time consuming. No one has the patience. This is a microwave culture. Same thing when people have a stomach ache, pain in their head, they just want that little pill, get it cured within hopefully a few seconds. However, you get that Band-Aid impact in few seconds. Fundamentally, the cause of that discomfort is still there. That leads to another fundamental difference of the holistic medicine, especially in Far East, in Asia, compared to the modern pharmaceutical approach is we actually find the cause of blockage. So I can spend days to talk about most of the disease are caused by blockage. And we start to feel signs of discomfort without any of the current most advanced instrument can detect. However, our body is telling us, once we deviate from that homeostasis point, the balance of yin and yang, all those elements we have, depends on, you're talking about the ancient Indian medicine or the ancient Chinese medicine, we have all the theory about it. We start to feel something is not right. So this is the time I have many friends, even customers, shared with me, they would go to the doctor office. They did all the tests they could, nothing wrong. So it's like, comes like, oh, in your head, you just need to be happy. Oh, you may have a depression. I need to put you on a depression pill. It is not that. It is not that there's a blockage. It could cause, like you mentioned about this heavily processed food. It's not going to kill you within a week. It's not going to kill you within a year. However, it causes this slow, low degree, slow chronic inflammation.
Yep.
And this inflammation, what they do in our body is start to cause this blockage of our bloodstream, neuron path, and the qi channel. With the current medical device, we cannot see the qi channel, but it's there. We talk about the frequency, we resonate with each other, we resonate with Mother Nature, we resonate with our pets, with other animals, even sometimes with plants.
Right.
That frequency is there. It's this energy flow inside our body. Once there's a blockage there, we start to feel something's not wrong.
Yeah.
Not right, but at that time, when you do your blood tests, you check your blood cell counts, your iron level, those, you're fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting. One of the things that I thought about when you were saying that is since I've been vegan for 6 or 7 years now, like, it's funny because like I tend to go, not like I don't eat the same thing every day, but I eat a variety of vegetables and plants, obviously, and nuts, and it's weird how, I mean, I think most people would say it's weird. I understand it, but like I go and I just want to eat this today, right? Whether it's watermelon or blueberries or cashews or maybe a mix of nuts, but it's like my body's telling me, oh wait, you missed out something in the last couple of days. You need more of this. And so I like overdo it on that, but it's versus being a sugar craving, right? Because I know that's like those things are not necessarily causing a craving, but it's my body's frequency saying, hey, you're starting to drop in these levels of these vitamins and minerals. Let's start picking them back up. And so you're craving these specific things.
Yes. See, I think once you start to become vegan, obviously you start to pay attention to your body more. So this mindfulness, kind of, that's how human species survived for so long.
Yeah.
That we are slowly losing to the technology we are using. But your body is actually trying to tell you many things. But it is true, including myself, we're so busy. We're surrounded by constant stimulation.
Right.
ADHD is basically a thing now for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Can't focus on anything longer enough because it's just constantly bombarded by information overload, all those things. And so we don't have time to feel what our body tried to tell us. Not to mention, what is the surrounding. I think the real data is in this country, average consumer recognize more than thousands of logos.
Right.
They recognize, they can tell, they can name less than 5 of natural trees or plants.
Yeah.
In their own neighborhood.
Right.
And if you look at the grocery stores, typically we have probably less than 20, the typical vegetables and produce we eat. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Most people don't jump out of, if you really can't do dairy, what exactly the food you're taking every day. It's pretty much the same old thing. So from that angle, we're truly nutrient deficient because there are so many micro minerals we're just lacking. And it's really, really hard. Of course, supplements can help. However, supplements is not individualized.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. And the same thing with the fruit. The food, a big part of about traditional Chinese medicine is we never use the term superfood because one superfood for you can be a toxic.
Right.
Can be a toxin for me.
Right.
So especially, not to mention generally we're different age group. We live in different environment. We are under different physical tests, mental kind of tests, challenging. What we need is very different. And then our body, because of the genetic reason and all kinds of reasons, the environment, like for example, I could be allergic or sensitive to certain food, while you're totally fine with that.
Yeah.
So people don't understand that. People would say, oh my gosh, for example, avocado is the best. I'm going to eat avocado every day.
Yeah.
Avocado, based on the food thermal status, I mean, that's again the ancient wisdom, is very cold, very in nature. So for someone who has lots of mucus accumulation, we call it that you're already a little bit like your circulation is already not like flowless. It's not like a river, it's already kind of becomes like a pond, like the fish tank. We stop the water circulation, just let it sit there. The fish will die quickly.
Right.
So you supposed not to touch that. At least, or there's a different way to prepare the avocado instead of eat it raw.
Yeah.
Most people don't understand that. And then the same thing is, like now people understand gluten becomes a real thing because it's actually beyond gluten, is the pesticides, all the things they use.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's a really interesting point. And it's something that I've looked at a little bit, but when somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want some nutritional help, one of the things I ask is like, okay, well, what's your, like, where are you from? Like, not just like, okay, I've lived in Texas my whole life, but like your parents and your generations, like, where are they from? Because like that plays a part, like because your microbiome, your digestive system is going to change slightly from your parents, but like over the years, like it's developed. And so if somebody grew up, if their family tree traces back to Ireland, they're probably going to eat a very different diet to be successful than somebody who is from Mexico in their history. Like it's, and so like understanding that piece and going like, okay, well, this is what your body can handle because of where your microbiome came from.
Exactly.
That's a big piece of, I think, the confusing piece for people, because, nowadays we're especially in America, we're sort of all mixed of different things. And so it's like, okay, well, why can't I eat the same thing as my spouse does? My spouse eats it and is perfectly fine and doesn't have a problem. And I eat it. And like you said, the blood tests all say everything's fine, but I still can't find balance.
Yeah. Yeah, because the lab results can show exactly the same of two people, but your body can have totally different feeling. Because most people, when they eat something they supposed not to eat, it can be like even Whole Foods. You go to a restaurant, you order the same dish or whatever, and let's say your spouse perfectly fine. Next day when she wakes up, she could feel energized, start the day fresh. And you could feel like, I have a hangover. I didn't drink. What is going on? It's just your body is not, getting along that food or whatever thing they put in there.
Yeah.
And it is related with our, there's so many complex things in our body. People don't understand is those good bacteria, the balance of the good bacteria versus the bad bacteria.
Right.
And then how they interact with our gut cells, gut linings, and that whole thing. It is actually even beyond our understanding right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we start to understand just the surface of it, in my personal opinion, because like a few thousand years ago, we just know, again, the whole thing, fundamental core of traditional Chinese medicine is about cultivating and protecting your digestive system's energy.
Right.
And we have this, we call it the spleen. It's not just the organ.
Right.
Because again, the organ thing comes from more like the modern days medicine. In the old days, we have this like kidney, heart, lung. It actually tells you like a system. There's associated qi channel, blood flow, all those things to go with it. The spleen system is in charge of the digestive system. And it's the most vital foundation of everything, So even though a few thousand years ago, we didn't understand what is what's inside our body, where are the organs. But actually 2000 years ago, there's a book traced back. There is different diagrams, pictures of human showing you the blood flow, the vessel, the neuron path,
Oh, wow.
and also the chi channel. Yeah, that's why it's hard for people to understand how could they draw those. So there's one theory which nobody knows whether it's true or not. It says it's from the aliens.
Right.
Yeah. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. Yeah.
So so you mentioned this earlier, and so like to really get into your background and what you're doing, but like you came to this country and went into like get your PhD in pathology and like studying and researching how the body works and how the cells work, and then went into the pharmaceutical industry, and then now you've broken away from that. Like why break away from that and start Karviva?
Yeah, the driver is really the true passion I always have inherited from my culture, my family traits. So is this holistic traditional Chinese medicine, even though my parents, they are not the traditional medical doctor. However,
Right.
I have an uncle and aunt, well-known researcher. Like my uncle was a well-known researcher in terms of understanding acupuncture,
Okay.
using neuroscience, and then my aunt was studying herbal remedies, all those things, treatment for women's health, which women's health, again, is another heavily focused area in traditional Chinese medicine.
Right.
So I kind of, since I was little, I just got exposed to those things. And to me, that was my toy, all those remedies, things. I kind of play with them. I use myself as guinea pig to experiment. Crazy story behind it too. I would say, don't overdose yourself. You can get killed.
Yeah.
I went to the ER because of that. So
Oh my gosh.
there's certain things, yeah, you really need to know. I mean, I was when I was a teenager, I kind of adventure more and more, right? It's like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. And without knowing, if I kind of miss the dosage slightly, consequences can be huge.
Yeah.
But anyway, but what I really fascinated me about is this philosophy behind. I would say, if you look at the Far East, even religion, I don't call it a religion, Buddhism. It's really how we live our life, how we interact with nature surrounding, with other living creatures, with other human beings,
Right.
and how we should respect and have a compassion to our own body.
Right.
For example, never ever overreacting, and there's certain way like meditation, all those things, mindfulness practice, yoga, it's actually all coming from that.
Right.
Then I went down the path of biochemistry for my undergraduate degree, and then come to this country for pathology, PhD study. So for me is, again, the magic, the secret of life. It just fascinated me. And I also have a business degree. So when I went to the pharmaceutical after my business school study, I was basically shocked to see full of pipelines of treatments, drugs, compounds, this, that. People are not getting better.
Right.
Because with such advanced and huge investments in the medical study, compounds developments, vaccine, everything, you would think human beings should live to, everyone should have a good chance to live beyond 100.
Right.
Now these days. But the fact is, not really. I mean, of course, our lifespan compared to the Stone Age,
Sure,
the caveman era, we are live much longer. That's mainly because of antibiotics, because we're preventing the deadly infection. Right. In the old days, when they cut themselves, they most likely they can die from that wounds. Whereas now we are dying because many other disease. That wasn't an issue, a big deal in old days. Yeah. So I started to get curious. I was like, why, right? For me, maybe just naturally trained as a researcher or a scientist, I want to know why. Then different hypotheses, you want to see which one is right, which one is not right.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's the lifestyle, the food.
Yeah.
It's a big part of it. You know, and also as a mom, when my kids were little, you know, kids always like, for example, fruit juice, those kind of stuff.
Right.
And when naked first come out, I was like, hooray, this looks all natural, great. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm feeding them this high sugar drink.
Mm-hmm.
That's even worse than, I mean, certain way soda, because they
Yeah.
got so excited, right? You know, kids
Yeah.
is like hyper, and then they become whining and
Yeah.
temper tantrum all come out. So I was like, something needs to be done. So for me, is like, maybe I'm just naturally to be a problem solver. There's a problem. Can I come
Right.
up with a solution? It's like, then my experiments is, you know, can I make my heritage treasured remedies into this tasty liquid format
Right.
that people beyond my family can enjoy and hopefully can reverse their illness.
Yeah.
You know, food and herbs and many of the natural things in nature can do that. But unfortunately, many of us wait so late because, you know, by the time when we get our lab tests back, we say there's something wrong. It's already probably 10 years or who knows, 15 years later when we
Right.
first noticed that sign of blockage I mentioned before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and you know, one of the things that I saw on your website is, you know, you mentioned that food is better medicine. You know, and we talked about that, but like, so why go into beverages versus like, you know, because like the protein bar, the supplement bars, all those things, that's a huge business too. Like,
Yeah.
so was there a reason behind that, or was it just a preference?
No, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked about it. Again, goes back to the core fundamental belief of traditional Chinese medicine that talk about digestive health.
Mm-hmm.
And traditional Chinese medicine is obsessed with longevity.
Right.
It's because the country was ruled by many, many different empires over the years. Of course, when a person, you notice that even in the modern days, have that amount of concentrated power, they want to live forever.
Oh yeah.
They want to have that power forever. They want to be immortal. They want to live forever, have that control forever. They don't even want their own children to take over.
Right.
So what happened is there's a whole concentrated efforts in finding the magic pill remedy to allow them to live forever, the royal family, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, the whole thing concentrated on how do we preserve this digestive qi,
Mm-hmm.
the vital energy. Because the theory is if our digestive function the organ can keep functioning as young as possible, as effective as possible, our lifespan can be prolonged.
Right.
Think about this, because without this digestive complex system, we cannot support our life.
Yeah.
You know, basically it's amazing. I see people they can spend thousands of dollars per month on supplements, fancy supplements, food, this best superfood, that best superfood. If your digestive system is weak, you're just adding more burden onto your stomach, onto your intestines, all those things, the cells, you know, everything. And they have to use tons of energy to break down the stuff you put in. And some of stuff may even cause irritations, inflammations, right?
Right.
So the whole theory is about how do we preserve this digestive qi. And one theory, that's why, you know, if you look at my smoothie is not your regular smoothies, the whole grain, whole seeds with a little bit fruits, and the fruit juice is all about whole plants and using at least a centered functional ingredient, like the Viva has this ashitaba, the longevity grains from Japan, and the goji berry might rejuvenate, all those things. Is in the liquid form, it does two things. First, liquid form, this is the most gentle form on our digestive system.
Right.
Your stomach basically don't have to work hard.
Yeah.
It just does, it's like you just make your stomach kind of lazy, right? Don't have to
Yeah.
burn and secrete all the things to break down this, like if someone eat a steak,
Yeah.
imagine your poor stomach has to work how hard
Yep.
to break down. So you can utilize those nutrients. Of course, it's protein dense, no dispute about it, but all the work it has to do is a little factory. Versus this liquid form is in there. That's why, when people in the hospital post surgery recovery, they feed them liquid fruits, liquid form of foods, because you don't have the extra energy to digest that kind of heavy loaded stuff.
Right.
So, and the other thing, it is true in the pharmaceutical, if you look at pharmacology, basically the liquid form is the fast absorb form. Even like sublingual, I'm sure you've heard about sublingual drugs, right? So if someone, for example, is about to have a heart attack, you can use sublingual things and you have this, or they are about to have epilepsy episode, whatever. The sublingual work really quick. So so that's why, the faster you can get into your bloodstream or whatever, nourishing your cells at the cellular level, the more potent it is. And then the less burden you put on your digestive tract, the better it is. That's from the lens of traditional Chinese medicine. So I choose the liquid form. But of course, I mean, I do homemade my little healthy, like not nutritional bars, but healthy bites. I use sesame. Again, we're obsessed with black foods, like black sesame seeds, black rice, black soybean. This is called the longevity treasure from nature. But black sesame seeds, again, those seeds are very, very high in minerals. So you can just do, for women, 2 teaspoons of sesame seeds powder. You don't need to take any calcium supplements at all.
Oh, wow.
Be fine. Not only that, because this is bioavailable. Most of the calcium pill you get from the drug chain store, they're probably pretty low quality, to be honest with you. Because I used to work in pharmaceutical, I look at all the quality of the supplies there. Most of them are just, you basically waste 95% in that pill.
Right.
They could be filler, they could be just things your body cannot absorb if not labeled as a toxin. And then you can only utilize maybe less than 5%. However, from the foods, your ability to utilize that natural food, the minerals, the antioxidants, the nutrients are much, much better. So that's why sesame seeds and the black color usually is a symbol of very high dense antioxidants compounds. And also the other things usually is a sign of high contents of minerals. So if you look at a black rice, if you look at a black soybean, like black soybean compared to is the regular yellow or white soybeans, the antioxidants count level is much, much higher. And also even the protein level, it is much, much higher. It's naturally sugar-free. There's no sugar in the black soybean. That's why I love it. Very high fiber content. And so if you're vegan, I highly recommend you to look into black soybean because it's not something that the agriculture big companies are interested in genetic modify. So supposedly there's no, I mean, from what I know so far, no genetic modified black soybean so far. I mean, it's hard to find them. And there's 3 types. With their black soybean, they all have the beautiful black skin. But the kernel, the inside, the one when they germinate, form the leaves, the baby plants, we have the green version. I like to use the green one. They have the white version, they have the yellow version. They are all good, but the green one has even a little bit higher antioxidant level.
And that's like, when you mentioned, for almost 2 different questions, but the synthetic version of, calcium per se, right? Like if you go and you get that, or you just get a calcium tablet at the store and you don't know if it's synthetic or from a bioavailable source.
We don't know.
You don't know. But assuming it's synthetic versus, if you were to get one that's still a capsule, but it's from bioavailable sources and it's calcium from that, like, you're from a pathology standpoint, your body still reacts to that different, even though it could be the same quantity, the same, everything. Like if you looked under a microscope, you wouldn't be able to tell which is which, but your body can tell the difference of like, oh, this is from a plant source or an animal source or like something natural, right? Like that's something your body can actually determine.
Yeah, absolutely. Our cells, because the evolution, I mean, I do believe superpower, because I mean that's another story I don't want to share. When I was little, I'm sure you heard about if you do a survey of all the people around the world, I'm sure you will have a good percentage telling you they could sense the natural, the
Right.
spirits, whatever in the nature.
Right.
Is when we get older, we lose that ability to communicate with that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm psyche, but I do believe there's superpower there. But it's just from, let's say I'm a scientist, only believe evolution theory. Okay, so the cells we evolved over billions years. The cells are involved to recognize natural food only.
Right.
Because if you look at the history of chemicals, man-made chemicals, it's less than 200 years, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in food production.
Right.
So this is totally new. It's a blink, it's less than a millisecond if you look at the whole history of human species. That's totally foreign for us.
Yeah.
So that's why, I mean, most people say, I mean, oh, okay, even like as vegan, right? There are lots of simulated vegan meats that I don't touch, I don't like, because I would rather just eat my drink my homemade soy milk, cook my black soybean instead of eat those. Because here's the thing. If you look at those research publications, just go. If you're curious, you don't have to understand what they're saying. The process is so complex. So many chemicals are used inside. Are you saying all those chemicals somehow they used are somehow not in your final product?
Right.
Just think about it. That's logic. Of course, that's not logic.
Right.
So all those chemicals,
that or the chemicals that are in the pills, right? That stuff, you may be getting a small amount of calcium or a small amount of vitamin A or whatever it is that it's labeled as, but your body has to deal with that chemical onslaught.
Yeah.
And so you think you're doing something really good because you're supplementing your diet with these vitamins and minerals that we know are not as dense in the food that we eat. So let's supplement, but then we're adding fuel to the fire in a bad way because we're putting all these extra chemicals in.
Yeah. So for me, actually, I always say, people say, how do we solve this human population keeps growing, we're run out of natural resource? I would just say, actually a big part answer lies in how do we utilize the natural resource? The way we utilize the natural resource right now is extremely wasteful.
Yeah.
For example, just by looking at the commercial made soy milk, which is everywhere, in the coffee shop, everywhere, it's extremely wasteful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's extremely wasteful. And then if you look at the real data, when my kids were little doing the Thanksgiving back then, they call it a farm fat, just how many turkeys were raised and slaughtered, and then more than like 1/3 just went to the landfill directly.
Right.
I mean, why would we do that?
Yeah.
Right? It's this whole thing. I mean, obviously we got trapped on this vicious cycle because of this, I cannot say, capitalism or whatever, but the more stuff you produce, the theory is the more stuff you can sell, the more profit you can make, blah, blah, blah. You just try to brainwash people to buy more things than they really needed. We are always just like to buy more things. I joke about my daughter, how many clothes you need to buy. You're not going to change 2 clothes a day, right?
Right.
To me, I can wear this. I wear this before she was born. She is a junior now in high school. Why clothes? But that's the culture is like consumption. And sometimes I joke about we are just in this huge Ponzi scheme because the whole economy system is really a Ponzi game if you think deep into it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, scary, but as long as the people believe this, you just keep the well running.
Yep.
So, but the consequences is the mother nature is the one that we keep drawing that resource we think is free. It's not free. When they will realize it's not free, maybe by that time it will be too late. I still think that'll be too late. I think every species has its own destination.
Right.
That hopefully there are more people like you and me, right? But however, the problem is the world is not run right now is not run by people like you and me.
Right. Exactly.
So one day I think we will realize there won't be the enough natural resource. Supposed to be, if we really realize what's the best efficient way to utilize them. Do you really have to eat like 2 pounds of meat a day?
Yeah. Right.
To meet all your body's needs? Of course not. And then, but the thing is, if you don't overeat or whatever, or eating those dirty foods, and some people, unfortunately, they don't want to do that. It's not like they want to do that. They got trapped in that because of the system we're in.
Right.
And then, of course, you get sick, you have to get more pills going, and then you eat more junk food. It's all feeding with each other.
Yeah.
And then we have this huge burden on healthcare. Well,
Yep.
We waste so much resource for no reason, and then we keep complaining about, where can we, people are starving.
Yeah. No, it is. It's a vicious cycle that we're in, and that's something that like I applaud you for trying to get after with the plant-based, with the smoothies and the juices that are coming from the right sources and also providing the correct amount of nutrients. Because for somebody that's not, that doesn't drink like good juice on a daily basis, or a smoothie every now and then, for somebody who's not getting that style of nutrient, they don't know that like that actually like satisfies you for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like you don't have these cravings all day long for other things, because you're like, oh, your body goes, oh, you gave me the nutrients I need, I'm good.
Yes, exactly. Just think about it. Just think about the digestive system is a factory. They need time to rest.
Right.
Those workers, those cells, you cannot just overwork them. The problem is, it is true, we do lots of stress eating, because when we get stressed, our emotion, that's another problem with our modern life now these days. We only glorify so-called positive emotion. There's actually no positive or negative emotion. They're just, this is all natural. This is who we are. When we feel sad, when we feel fear, when we feel angry, it's all there to protect us. It's for your long-term survival. However, we have to, including myself, I don't want to appear weak in front of my kids, right? So think about, especially if an adult man, how many times you would cry in a month. Let's don't even talk about in a day. Versus when you were a baby or little kids, how many times you could have cried. When you get older, you start to like, oh, you're crying, boy. Oh my.
Right. Yep.
There's something wrong with you, right?
Right.
Or the women will be labeled as, oh, you're so emotional. You're so, kind of weak, right? I mean, that kind of things, actually, another part, if you go to see a traditional Chinese doctor, the first thing they will do is they will look at your face. I can tell you're vegan just by your skin natural too, seriously. And then, but they will feel your pulse. And you see, it's amazing. A big part is they would spend good amount of time chatting with the patient to understand what is going on. Because I can tell you a good example. Many of the infertility is caused by this emotion blockage.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes, for example, I mean, I guess in this culture, baby shares some, in the Asian culture, there is this overemphasis on women to give birth of boys. to keep the family name passed on. So, and this enormous pressure, and then, you have to have, especially, it's crazy, right? In mainland China, the policy used to be one family can only have one child. You only have that one chance to give birth of a boy. Think about that at a certain age. It's almost like you'll be shamed as a mom or a wife. You can't do that. And once the women relieve that kind of emotion, they actually become pregnant. I mean, you can even sense this pulse. You can sense this blood flow telling you a different thing. The emotion blockage, you can sense that if you really kind of a good medical doctor, traditional doctor can tell. And that's why one part in the traditional medicine we do is actually, it's almost like you call it here is like the shrinks, they do it, right? The therapy, but it's part of the healing process you're supposed to. Yeah. Of course, now we just follow the protocol. Oh, do the test. Come back, see me, whatever, and I give you a drug if you're not good. If you're not, I'm going to refer you to a specialty doctor. Do more tests. Oh, worst case, I'm going to put you on surgery. Cut that things out.
Right. And typically when you hear that as a patient, right? Like, oh, they don't have an answer for my problem, and they want me to come back in 3 weeks or 3 months, or they're referring me to somebody else who's a specialist because like
it makes you even more nervous, right?
Exactly.
You're like, am I having some deadly disease?
Yep.
What is wrong with me?
Right. It's like,
yes,
oh my gosh.
I mean, but yeah, but it is hard. I would say that's why I have that tagline going back to what you asked about medicine. I would say you don't have to like my drink, because it is true. I don't use any sugar, right? I use monk fruits and I use natural whole plants. So sometimes the texture may not be like, for example, I also have a coffee line. I only sell local. It's never that silky smooth because you have to use that chemical. 100% sure. You have to use that chemical in order for them to be commercialized, produced, to have that silky smooth feeling. So I don't use it. So the texture is not, I would just say, you don't have to like my drink if you feel like that's not to your taste bud standard right now. However, at least I hope you think about the message behind. Yeah. But it is true, if you, every time when I drive by, doesn't matter which Starbucks shop you go, this drive-through line, especially in the late afternoon, is so long.
Oh yeah. Yep. So like, as far as I know that y'all sell in stores, but you're also on Amazon.
Yeah, we're Amazon. We're actually also on Walmart Marketplace.
Oh, nice.
It's also, I would say again, I'm always curious to see what people say. I will say the first drink I always recommend if they are craving for sugar all the time is try my detox.
Okay.
I do have customers saying it would. Actually, this lady was so funny a few years ago. She came to me, she said, I'm so sad. So what's going on? Did my drink cause any trouble? She said, I don't have the sweet tooth anymore. What's going on? I'm like, that's so good for you.
Right.
Enjoying the cake. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what to say.
Right. That's funny. That's a good problem.
It's supposed to return your taste buds to the natural stage, which is you're supposed not just like the first time when I had that piece of donut, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so intense, almost choked me.
Yeah. And that's true. It's like our taste buds are coated with the filth and griminess of processed foods, and so we don't taste. I remember I have a friend who was asking me for some help this years ago, and so I was like, okay, well, like the first thing I want you to like cut out some of the sauces that are like super fatty and super oily and stuff. And he's like, okay, so he tried. He was like, okay, for lunch every day this week, I'm just gonna have a salad. I'll have whatever I want on it, whatever kind of salad, but no dressing. I was like, yeah, no dressing. Cut the dressing out. Like, he was heavy ranch, right? Like, and one of those that like when you look at the salad, there was more ranch than salad, right? Like,
oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. And so I remember him calling me like 4 or 5 days into it, and he was like, dude, did you know lettuce has a taste to it? I was like, yeah. He's like, I didn't know that. I'm like, okay. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Next time you tell them your taste buds actually the natural cycle, I think is 5 days.
Yeah.
Or so. Yeah. So just well, it probably takes 2 weeks for them to adjust to that. But if they can pass that 2 weeks, the pain, whatever threshold, it's like a test on them. It is hard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
hard.
It is
Especially
hard.
people are so craving for ice cream.
Yep.
I had to go through that whole thing with my son. When he was little, he got hooked on this ice cream.
Yeah.
Because once he started, I mean, here's what I observed. Once he started to play iPad, the games,
Hmm.
he started to get hooked on ice cream. I
Okay.
still don't know what's the connection between the two. And it got so bad, he would hide because he knows I didn't want him to do that. He
Right.
would hide somewhere, finish the whole jar,
Oh
and
man.
hide the jar somewhere, the empty jar somewhere. It took me quite a while. I think the pandemic actually saved us because I started to have more time
Right.
because I was so busy, right? I basically first thing I did is let's take a walk every morning.
Mhm.
He was so chubby when he was little. I mean, because of this ice cream thing.
Yeah.
He couldn't even walk like a mile
Yeah.
for he was a fourth grader. Yeah. And then he would complain his ankle hurts, this hurts, that hurts. And
Right.
then he started now, totally normal weight now. He didn't have to eat ice cream for a whole month.
Yeah.
Of course, my approach is I keep an ice cream jar in the fridge. If you guys really need it, I'm not like you, so you don't have to feel like you have to eat your ice cream at your friend's house,
Right. Right.
right? But it's up to you. But
Yeah.
the jar is still there, right?
Yeah.
So I would say it just is. It takes some efforts, and it's a holistic approach. It
Yeah.
also requires the people, your family member, to be supportive. It is sad. I mean, now these days we are surrounded by, I mean, we have friends, but we still feel lonely, especially
Yeah.
the bigger the city it is, we still feel lonely. And that's why lots of people feel like when their favorite animal friends die, they
Mhm.
feel sadder.
Yeah.
It is sad. I heard
Yeah.
about that
It is.
data. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, I can't, that just means we just don't have that compassion to each other anymore,
Yeah.
that unconditionally understanding and love,
Right. Yep.
which is, I
That's
think it's also,
another.
yeah,
It's another piece of the puzzle.
yeah, it's
It
another
really
big
is.
piece of the puzzle.
Yep. So and so people can learn more at carviva.com.
Yeah,
And then you're on Instagram and TikTok and all the social media stuff.
yes, I like to
Okay.
produce those little sound bites,
Yeah.
uh, just simple things because traditional Chinese medicine are really difficult to understand. I joke about that. The books we inherited a few thousand years ago, they joke about is from the aliens.
Yeah.
It's extremely hard to understand. And there are books.
Yeah.
There's one book I still couldn't read. It's supposed to be there. Very few people could understand the whole thing, but
Yeah.
they are like fortune teller, true fortune teller.
Okay.
Yeah. But the language is extremely hard, impossible to understand. It's the ancient language, and there's so many things you have to really understand what they try to talk about, but then you can foresee future, whatever.
Right.
But it's amazing. I'm just saying the ancient wisdom is there.
Yeah.
I like to share whatever I understand, I can master. I like to share the knowledge I inherit. I didn't
Right.
invent them. It's not from me,
Right.
but it's just what I learned and what I see how we can apply to our daily life. And also I would say lots of research findings I have seen in the fields
Right.
now these days.
Right. Well, I greatly appreciate that you're doing that because, one of the things that I try to live by now, I didn't always try to, understand this. And it's one of those things is as you get older, of course, right? You start learning and going like, oh, wait, when you're a teenager, you know everything. And,
Yeah,
then you realize that you don't know anything. And it's
yeah,
like, oh, if I learn from the past, then I'm going to be better off. And so, I appreciate that you're trying to share all that stuff because if we don't remember that, like you said, there's only a few people that can read that stuff anymore, right? Like if we don't stay
crazy.
connected to that, we lose it, and then we're destined to repeat those mistakes that that we should have solutions to. And I think that's one of the things that's sort of where we're stuck as a country, and it's heading across the world, is that we're losing the basics of food. And when we lose that, there's some big issues that are on the forefront if we don't switch back to food is what really is going to help us be healthy and live long and be able to really stick around versus get to a point where we're like, okay, well, we're completely dependent on synthetics and technology to stay alive.
Yes.
So
yes. Yeah. Just envision that. I would say close your eyes and envision, I don't know, a few hundred years later, if the earth becomes that, it's truly sad. But
yeah,
if it does happen, that means the species probably is time to go.
right.
I always
Yep.
joke about the earth, the planet will still be here.
Right.
The species has its own determined, the
Yeah.
destination, whether you will be here or not,
Yeah.
for how long.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Angela, for being a guest. This has been a great conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've learned a lot. I wish you nothing but success, and
No,
I hope that people
I admire
go.
what you do.
Oh, thank you so
Like I
much.
said, more people can do this, the better
Yeah.
we will be as a whole. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So I'll link all the links for Karviva.com and all the social media stuff in the show notes so people can go and get and if they haven't already sampled and tried it out, that they can get there and do that.
Yes.
So,
I'll create a coupon code for your
awesome.
followers. Yes, I
Awesome.
need to. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, I always share. I do lots of donations
Yeah.
and community events because I do feel like, people need to understand. They don't have to become the experts, but they just have to understand, think twice.
Yeah.
When you feed your family, what you are feeding your family yourself. Yeah.
Right. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Okay, I really appreciate this. It's fun.
Yep.
Thanks for checking out the Confidence Through Health podcast. Please subscribe, post a review, share this episode with those you love who need a little extra help with their health journey. Visit allinhealthandwellness.com to learn more about the coaching programs that I provide. All episodes are produced by the Social Media Cowboys, your source for all online marketing needs. Go to socialmediacowboys.com for more information.